Are you able to hear me? Are you able to hear me? Okay. Shall we start the class? Okay. I hope that you are able to see the screen. Please respond. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, fine. So, good afternoon to one and all. So, I will be taking a class on experimental design, which is there as per your syllabus. So, I'll be talking only with respect to the experiment design. So, there are two aspects. One is the experiment design, and the second is the sampling. Okay, so sampling I will take it on some other day. So, I'll be talking about what is the experiment design and its types with some examples. Okay, so okay, so 18, only 18 students are there. Okay, fine. Okay. Before I start with an experiment design, the concept of experiment design, so I would like to give some conceptual information so that you will understand what is the purpose of experiment design and what are the various the terms that you need to understand, etc. So before experiment design, I would like to talk about what is a research. Just give you a small information about research and the design. So research is basically what you are searching for something. What is that something? Some true information about some entity. Okay, that means you keep on searching and searching and try to give some kind of the informations on that specific entity. So that is called as a research. Okay, next is a design. What is a design? Design is a method or the procedure to find out the searching of something. Of something is nothing but your entity, some entity. Okay, so you want to solve the problem of say economy, or you want to solve the problem of the energy crisis. Okay, or you want to solve the problem of driverless cars, etc. So there are so many design aspects that will be available for a given problem P. There will be a different kinds of solutions. So I call those solutions as S1, S2, S3, and say Sn. So S1 is one method, S2 is another method, S3 is another method. To arrive at a solution for a given problem P, the solution is S. To arrive at a solution, there are different methods. I call it as method 1, method 2, method 3, and method N. These methods are nothing but the procedures or the standards. Okay, the methods that you are going to use to arrive at a solution for a problem, okay, is called as a design. Okay, so if that is applied for a research, then it is called as a research design. Probably in the previous class you would have come across the various kinds of designs. There are many kinds of designs are available, like you have operational design, sampling design, statistical design. Like this, there are many designs are available. Now I'm giving a broad premise about what is a research design. It directs the experiment by orchestrating the data collections. Orchestrating means collecting our data from the various sources or multiple sources, which defines the statistical analysis of the resultant data. So I take the data, I do some kind of a processing on that data. Okay, then I will apply some statistical methods, okay, to get some kind of the information, okay, and guides the interpretations of the results. That means, given the data, I'm going to apply some statistical tools or statistical analysis on the data, and it is going to give some information or inference. And this inference will be useful to some kind of a societal problems. So, for example, why the temperature is increasing? Okay, so I want to understand why temperature is increasing in the environment. So that might be one of the problem. So there are various factors which affects the temperature of the environment in different months or different years or in different regions. So there are various groups are available. So if I want to analyze this, say specific to Bangalore, why the temperature in Bangalore is increasing year by year, that means there are so many other factors. So I do some statistical analysis on the data which I have collected, okay, and I try to give some kind of inference. Okay, inference is nothing but your some kind of a results. That result should be quantitative. But how do you put that quantitative information? The quantitative information is represented through a variable. Okay, so a variable. So that variable is called as quantitative variable. This quantitative variable can be a dependent variable or it can be a independent variable. So quantitative variable can be a dependent variable or independent variable. So what is this dependent and independent variable? Suppose if you are writing a simple mathematical equation, y is equal to 2x. Okay, y is equal to 2x. So here y is called as dependent variable and x is called as independent variable. So why do you call x as a independent variable and y as a dependent variable? The value of y depends upon the value of x. That means the value of y is depending on the value of x. X did not depend on anything. Suppose if I give x is equal to 1, okay, if the mathematical formula is y is equal to 2x, if I put x is equal to 1, y will be equal to 2. If x is equal to 2, then y will be equal to 4. If x is equal to 3, y will be equal to 6. So that means the value of y depends upon the value of x. Okay, so x is a independent variable and y is a dependent variable. Okay, next, this is the first thing. This is something about variable. Next is extraneous variable. Okay, extraneous variable. So this is some independent variable which is going to impact the effect of dependent variable. Okay, dependent variable is what? Y. Suppose say y is equal to 2x plus 7. Okay, y is equal to 2x plus 7. Actually, the value of y depends upon the value of x. But whether you put 7 or 8 or 9, it does not matter. Okay, but that value of 7 will definitely going to impact on the dependent variable, that is x. Suppose if I replace 7, put 9, so then it is the value of y is going to change. So the objective here in the design is to reduce the impact or the influence of this kind of variables. Okay, this dependent variable, independent variable, and extraneous variable. So these are the three important terms that you need to understand when you talk about the experiment design. Okay, next is the experiment design. What is this experiment design? So experiment design is nothing but a blueprint of the procedure. Procedure is nothing but a method which enables the researcher to test the hypothesis. Hypothesis what? I can make something true and prove it is true. I will assume something. I will assume that MCA of BMSIT always get 10 ranks. That is my hypothesis. Okay, I can prove true or I can prove false. So that is the hypothesis. and understand the relationship between the dependent variable and independent variable. So the method which is used to understand the relationship between the given dependent variable and given independent variable. But in the real world scenario, there will be always one dependent variable and there might be one or more independent variable. Say for example, my objective is to select a computer, okay, and selection of computer depends upon various factors which are independent. What are those factors? Maybe for example, price might be one factor, warranty might be another factor, maybe quality of the keyboard can be another factor, okay, or the hard disk might be one more factor. So like this, all these factors are independent variable which enables you to take the decision to buy which computer. Okay, so why that buying a computer is why. Okay, and all these parameters like price, quality, warranty, okay, hard disk, memory, and all these things are independent variables. So if you just try to change the values of the independent variables, then your decision making process will change. So this is an experiment. You just try to give a different values for this variables and try to see which fits in within your given constraint. So this methodology is called as experiment design. Next, what is the experiment? The experiment is nothing but the process of examining the truth of the statistical hypothesis. The statistical hypothesis is to test whether it is true or whether it's false or it falls in some range, etc., which will be related to a research problem. Okay, so what do you mean by a research problem? Any problem where the community tries to explore the various artifacts of the problem is termed as research problem. So that means you keep on searching so many things on a specific problem. So that problem is called as a research problem. So for example, to be very precise, I want to sort the numbers. Okay, so some person has developed shell sorting. Okay, but there are again certain drawbacks are there. Again, some other person develops say bubble sorting algorithm to sort the numbers. It has got some kind of a drawbacks. Again, somebody develops merge sort. Okay, so like this, sorting the numbers maybe in ascending or descending is the problem. Now for that you will have a different methods. That methods is nothing but your sorting techniques or sorting methods. So people try to redefine the method because there is not a single method in the universe to tell that my method or my algorithm will suit for all kinds of problems. To be very generic, suppose somebody studies every day, say for 3 hours a day. 3 hours a day he studies, and he gets first rank. So is it possible to take that as a parameter? If you study every day for 3 hours, so will you get a rank? So that's not possible, right? Because there are various other factors which are included in that. So for every category of problem, it has got its own methods to evaluate and identify. So that those kind of problems are called as research problems. So in the broad premise, there are two types of experiments. One is absolute experiment and other is comparative experiment. Suppose the problem is that I want to search for some method. Okay, I want in the given set of data, or say some set of numbers. So there are some say 50 numbers, and I want to identify a search for a specific number in the given set. My focus is only that. I write one algorithm and I see that I will get it. That is absolute experiment, where the focus is only one. Okay, it may take 1 day to search, It may take half a day to search, or it may take 1 hour to search, or it may take 1 minute also to search. It all depends upon the logic that you are going to write it, how fast you want to search. The number which you are searching will be at the beginning of the data, maybe in the middle of the data, or maybe at the end of the data. Okay, wherever it is, but I want to search. But which method do you employ for this? Which searching technique you are going to use it? So that is an absolute experiment. Okay, so what happens if I put it in the beginning? What happens if I put it in the middle? What happens if I put it in the at the end? What is the time taken for all these things? So that so I am going to develop only one method to search for a specific element in the given set of 50 elements. Second is a comparative experiment. Comparative experiment is there are various methods to identify it. Okay, I can go for linear searching method. I can go for binary search method. I can go for some other searching method. So suppose I have to search one value in the 50 elements list, set of 50 elements. Now I can use searching technique 1, I can use searching technique 2, I can use searching technique 3. Okay, all these 3 does the same job, but some method is more efficient, some method is not. Okay, some method is more efficient if the number to be searched is at the beginning, and some method is more efficient if the number is in middle. Some method is more efficient if the number is in the end. Now that means for each method there are some plus and minuses, okay, positives and negatives. Now given a situation, if I ask you which method is efficient, then you have to do the comparison. So what is the parameter that you have to take? Okay, how fast the method is going to search the given element in the set of 50. So that is nothing but your comparative experiment. Now, what is this experiment unit? It is an individual entity on which inference is made in the sample. Your sample is nothing but your population. Okay, so I will take 10 elements today and I will try to find what is the time taken. Okay, that is one unit. Second, again I am going to tomorrow I will take some 25 elements. Okay, so that is the second experiment unit. So day after tomorrow I am going to take 100. That is another experiment unit. Okay, so likewise, if you are just trying to see the different units in the experiment, then that is called as experiment unit. Say for example, one more thing which I would like to tell you is, now I want to understand the performance of the student, assume. Now there are 2 parameters. One is the assignments. I give an assignment to the students. Second thing, I give the project to a student. So based on these 2 parameters, I want to ascertain whether the student's performance is good or not. But what is the unit on which I am doing the experiment? So I will conduct a first internals, say test 1. Test 1 is the first experiment unit. So I am going to evaluate in the test 1 about the assignments and say projects. Again, say test 2, that is another experiment unit. Probably the student X would have not done well in the first test. Okay. Hello? Am I audible? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. Okay. Similarly, I am going to test 2. So now I am going to analyze the performance of a student based on these 2 parameters. So each of this test 1 and the test 2 are called as experiment unit. Next, the control group. Control group is nothing but a special condition under which the group is evaluated. Say for example, I have 50 students and I will make 25 students as one group and I will make 25 students as another group. There is group 1 which consists of 25 students. There are group 2 which is called as group 2 which is consists of 25 students. Now for group 1 I am going to give the special training. I am going to give a special training for them in some specific subject, or I will guide them in some projects or give some special assignments, etc. And after giving those training, I am going to evaluate. Okay. So that is called as a control group. So there can be n number of control groups. Okay. So I want to group based on the skill sets. I want to group based on the age. I want to group based on the percentage. I want to group based on the skill sets in the contemporary technologies. So I can group in the various categories. So that is called as a control group. The combination of experiment and the control group in the different conditions is called as treatment. Okay, it's called as a treatment. Say for example, you can think like this. Suppose there is 1 acre land. Okay, there is 1 acre land. So for 25%, I use one fertilizer. Another 25%, I use another fertilizer. For another 25%, I use another fertilizer. Okay, for another 25%, I am going to use another fertilizer. That means I am going to divide my 1 acre land into 25, 25, 25, and 25. For each of these, I am going to group it as A fertilizer, B fertilizer, C fertilizer, and say D fertilizer. Okay, I am going to make use of 4 different fertilizers for a given land. Now, I want to know which fertilizer I can use it for my land so that I can get a maximum yield. Now, this fertilizer A, fertilizer B, fertilizer C, fertilizer D is called as treatments. Okay, and the experiment unit is your seeds. The experiment unit is nothing but your seeds. Next, your this combination of the seeds plus this control group, this fertilizer A, B, C, and D in different conditions, okay, is called as a treatment. So is this clear to all of you? Any clarifications in the concept?
No, sir.
Because if you don't understand these things, other things you cannot understand. You have to clearly understand between this, what is experiment design, experiment unit, treatment, and control group, and dependent and independent variables. If you are okay, I will just go to the next slide. Any clarifications here?
No, sir.
Okay,
No, sir.
fine. And one more thing. The last concept is experiment error. That is, uncontrolled variable in the experiment is called as experiment error. That means, see, in many cases, there are certain factors where we don't have a control. Say, for example, there will be some few students who would have scored extremely very good in the internal tests, say full marks. And every faculty know that that student is doing very good, and we can expect a rank from that student. But what happens when it goes to the external examiner who evaluates your paper? The third party person who evaluates might not evaluate in the way in which we are going to evaluate it, and we don't have a control on it. Okay, so it leads to error. Suppose say for 50, say for 100 marks, 50 is internals, 50 is say externals. For 50 out of 50, you are going to get it in internals. But in externals, the person would have given say 45. That means there is an error of 5%. It is not an error. Okay, but when you are doing this n number of times, okay, you may get some kind of a revaluation. Say a person one will evaluate, out of 50 is going to give say 45. Again, second person evaluates, out of 50 again he is going to give 48. So average will be 46. Now internal I have given 50, in external you have got 6. That means there is a error percentage of say 2%, okay, for 100. So these things you have to know. So just hello. Sorry, ಆಯ್ತು. ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ. Okay. So these are the concepts which you must be able to understand. Okay. Next is the principles of experiment design. This is very, very important. There are three principles of experiment design. In fact, you have four principles, but in your syllabus they have given only three. Okay, so hence I am restricting only to three principles. So the first thing is the principles of replication. Second is the principle of randomization, and the third is the principle of local factor. Okay, these are the three principles of experiment design. Now you know what is experiment, you know what is experiment design. Now principle of replication. What is that? Experiment should be repeated more than once. Replicate, that is a general statement. And each treatment is applied in experimental units. So that means, see, today you are doing one experiment and you have a data set. You try to put that data set for a given problem and you just try to analyze it. You are going to get some result. So I call that data set 1. Okay. And I'm going to get a result R1. Okay. So again, tomorrow I'm going to take another data set. So I will call as a data set 2 and I'm going to get a result R2. And again on the third day, I'm going to take a data set 3 and I'm going to get a result R3. So I have taken different data sets. I have taken different data sets and I'm going to get similar or different results. Okay, so data set is differing, results might or might not differ. Okay, say for example, I have to select one college. I have 5. I'm a student and I have to select one college based on my ranking. So I have 5 institutions are there. Okay, now each institution has got its own credibility. Maybe in some institutions ranks are good. In some institutions there will be an accreditation. In some other institutions there will be quality of teaching might be very good. In some institutions research might be very good. Okay, so in some institutions placements are very good. Okay, or in some institutions 2 or 3 placements and teaching might be good. In some other institution placement will be very good but teaching will not be good. So like this there are combinations. So if I want to check which institution is better, so I have to do the experiment for n number of times. So that is nothing but your principle of reflection. That means each treatment. So now placements, accreditation, quality of teaching, okay, then say placements. So these are called as treatments and each treatment is applied to each institution. Now what you do, you take the parameters and you in the vertical direction and you put the colleges in the horizontal direction and you rate 1 to 5. Okay, and you try to do this thing for n number of times. Okay, so each of this is called as experimental unit and the parameters what I told you is called as treatment. Okay, so this is principle of replication. If you want to get results which is where the accuracy is more than 90%, 95%, you have to do n number of times. In a very simple manner, what I can tell is, suppose if you read once, you get some information. If you read the same material again, you get more information. If you read the same material n number of times, you are going to get more information. So if you read certain material n number of times very repeatedly, that means you get more clarity, okay, and more information will be available. So in the experiment also, when you are doing it, you should try to do it in n number of times. So that is nothing but your principle of replication. So here, repeated applications of the treatments is known as replication. That means what is that repeated application of treatments? Placements. Okay. Then quality of teaching, then accreditation, so then ranks, etc. So these are the repeated application of treatments. So when the treatment is applied only once, we have no means of knowing about the variation of the results of a treatment. Suppose, for example, if you are selecting the institution only based on the say placements, that cannot be only single factor, right? But there might not be teaching. There you might not get ranks. Okay, but if you are talking only placements, that is not the correct way of evaluating the institution. So we have to take multiple parameters to estimate what is the percentage of experimental error. I told you that what is an experimental error? It is uncontrolled variation in the experiment. So with the help of the experimental error, we can determine what is the differences between the real and not real. Okay, so if you try to do the replications many number of times, there are very less chances that error is exposed. There will be error. You cannot get 100%, you cannot make it, but the errors that you are getting, it can be reduced. So if you are reading some book n number of times, okay, some chapter or some program n number of times, chances of doing mistakes will be very less. So this is nothing but your principle of replication. Next is principle of randomization. Okay, principle of randomization. What is this? Variation caused by extraneous variable in the experiment under different conditions. So I call this extraneous variable is free variable. Okay, it's called as a free variable. Now this free variable is not going to affect the study of the scope in the research. For example, so if you want to identify the crimes or cyber hacks or attacks that are happening for a specific institution, and if you are taking age as one of the parameter, so that will not fall into the scope of this study. So I want to study who are the people, okay, who are attacking the cyber attacks of the specific institutions. So what are the variations caused by it? Okay, so that means when all the treatments have equal chance of being allocated to different experimental units, then it is known as randomization. Say for example, now randomization will be something like this. Now there are very 5 bright students. All are equal. Their marks are equal, knowledge is equal, okay, politeness is equal. If you are taking 10 parameters, in all 10 parameters all are equal. But I want to choose any 2 out of 5. How do I choose? But there should be some kind of a justification. Okay. When all these things are equal, okay, so I have to choose 2 out of them. So during that time, I have to apply some kind of a randomization. Okay. So if our conclusions are to be valid, treatment means and differences among the treatment means should be estimated without any bias. For this purpose, we use the technique of randomization. Now, what is the meaning of this sentence? Now, when all are equal, when all 5 students are equal, at least there should be some distinguishing factor where I can differentiate among this 5 set of students. So randomly I have to pick. Probably I can put some kind of the the parameters. What are those parameters? The students must be able to consecutively take 90% minimum in all the semesters. Okay, 90% in all the semesters, all the 4 semesters. That is one this thing. So if I take an average of all the semesters of each student, I must be able to get 90. So somebody will get 93, somebody might get 91, somebody will get 98, somebody will get 95. Okay, now I have to rank them. Okay, so person who has scored highest marks, say 98 will be ranked 1, next 95 rank 2, 92 rank 3, 91 rank 4, 90 rank 5. That is one parameter. So I'm going to take a mean and identify based on the ranks who is better. That means to say I'm going to give the priority. So variation is in what? Variation in the percentage obtained. Okay, so that is a free variable, extra variable. Okay, that is one of the parameter. Okay, that is one thing. So this is called as principle of randomization. Next, the principle of the local factor. Here factor is nothing but your parameters. Okay, factors are nothing but your parameters. So the process of reducing the experimental errors by providing relatively heterogeneous experimental areas into an homogeneous units is called as local control. Okay, so what is the meaning of this? So under the principle of local factor, you are trying to reduce the experimental errors. Ultimately, in any kind of experiment designs, you are required to reduce the errors, okay, or influencing factors by providing what? Relative heterogeneous experimental areas. What are those relative experimental areas? Say, for example, I want to identify some set of students for internship at Microsoft in US. How do I identify? So I cannot be partial to some students. So I have to define some criteria on which the student is evaluated. Now, in a given class, I'll ask the students to submit some assignment, do some projects. So I will give some time. Okay. So and I define the some kind of a rubrics for it. What rubrics? Whether the student is doing in a contemporary technology, whether student is using some novel algorithm, okay, whether student is used to do it within 2 months. That means duration, contemporary technology, okay, then the novelty in the work. These are the three parameters. And novelty, duration, and the contemporary technologies, the units of measurements are different. Units of measurement are different. Duration can be understood in number of days. Novelty can be understood in terms of the usage of the method among the masses. Okay, next, the contemporary technologies, latest technology where the industries are using it. Okay, now for each of these parameters, the units are different. Now I have to come out with some mechanism where I can convert all these units into one common measure. So that is called as normalization. Okay, so converting everything into a normalization. Say, for example, when I want to buy a computer, price is in rupees, warranty is in number of years, quality is in number of defects. Okay, then memory in terms of say MB or GB, whatever it is. Similarly for hard disk, all disk will be in, say, GB. So all these parameters are in different units of measurement. So I want to convert everything to one unit by using the concept of normalization. Okay, this converting heterogeneous units into an homogeneous units is called as local control. What will this local control do? It will increase the efficiency of the experiment design. How? By reducing the experimental errors. So this is based on variation from one experimental unit to another experimental unit. Okay, so this is what is principles of experiment design. Any clarifications here, anybody? Any clarifications?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Is it
No,
clear?
sir.
Concept is clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next. Okay. Now, in order to have valid estimate of an experimental error, the principles of replication and principle of randomization is used. That means in reducing the mistakes in the experiment, okay, I will use the principles of replication and principles of randomization. So that means what? I will repeat my experiment n number of times so that my results will be accurate. Say for example, students giving the feedback to the faculty members. 3 students giving feedback will give a different result. 10 students giving a feedback on a faculty will give a different result. 50 students giving the feedback on the faculty will give a different result. So that means I cannot predict or estimate by just taking only one experiment. I have to do it for n number of times. Okay. In other way around, if I want to tell whether a student is good in studies or not, by just giving one program, if he does not execute, then he is bad. If he's executing a program, he is good. I cannot come to that conclusion. So I have to conduct test 1, test 2, test 3, test 4, test 5. So I see the continuous improvement or so continuous tracking, I will do it. So depending upon the continuous tracking, so then I can say whether a student is good or bad in studies. So that is the estimation what I'm going to do it. So simply I cannot take one experiment and say that this is correct. So I have to replicate n number of times the same methods. Okay, say in other way around, one more example would be, suppose say I'm just doing one program. Okay, say for example, sorting or searching. So I will ask you, given 50 numbers, you identify one element, okay, which will be there at the beginning probably. You give a method and say that, okay, I got the element. It takes maybe 0.001 second. But if I give 1000 numbers, the time taken will be different. Okay. Now, whether the same method, same procedure is applicable to this or not, that we have to check it out. That's what I mean to say valid estimate. It's randomization. I take a random data and I'm going to test whether it can be used or not in a proper way. Okay. This is very, very important. To validate, one is validation. Validate the estimate of experimental error. There might be 3% error, there might be 4% error, there might be 5% error. Okay. So in order to do that, whether that number is correct or not, so we use the principles of replications and randomization. There are a lot of statistical tools available for carrying out the replications and randomizations, but in your syllabus it is not there. Okay, but probably as time permits, I can show you some of the statistical tools, how you can use it. Okay, so second thing is, in order to reduce the experimental error, that means chances of reducing the errors in the experiment, we use principle of replication and principle of local control. These two methods are being used to reduce the experimental error. Okay. So this is very, very important. So if the commonality in these things is principles of replications. So what I mean to tell here is, so you have to take more data, you have to train n number of times, you should do the same experiment n number of times to get some accuracy in the results. Okay, so that is what is principles of replication. Principle of replication is very, very important. Okay. So what did we study? We have studied the basic preliminaries to understand the concept of experiment design. Second, we have understood what are the various principles used in the experiment design. Okay, and this is small descriptions about replication, randomizations, and local control. Okay. Third is, we'll go to experiment design types. Okay. So when I'm doing any experiment, there are a lot of parameters which are taken into consideration. What are those considerations? Point number 1. Suppose I want to know How many students are good in programming? How many students are good in database? How many students are good in testing? Okay, these are the treatments. Okay, programming, testing, database are called as treatment. So when I want to study this in terms of overall performance of a student, I should have some parameters. I can group based on programming. I can group out of 50 students. I can group some 8 students into programming. I can group some 20 students into testing, say some another 30 students into database, maybe another 20 students into probably for say hardware, etc. So when I want to group, that means there should be some kind of a commonality between them in that group. Okay, that means they should be strong in logics if you're talking about programming. Okay, so I'm going to define some kind of a parameter to make groups. Groups are nothing but here, I mean to say the clusters. Okay, so that is what I wanted to tell. So here, groups are designed into two ways. One is the control group and other is the experiment group. Control group is normal group, all 50 students. All 50 students belongs to one group. Okay, but out of 50 groups, I will be selecting some 10 or 15 students who are very bright in programming, because there is a requirement for me from Microsoft. I want some 5 students who are very good in programming. So I cannot choose only 5. What I will do, I will choose some 10 to 15 students. I will handpick them out of 50. So this 15 students will be made into another group. Out of 50 is we have 50 set of students. So out of 50, I will handpick 15 students. Okay, and I will leave remaining say 35 students. These 15 students are called as experiment group, and the 35 is called as control group. Okay, 15 is called as experiment group, and 35 is called as control group. Now, what I will do, for these 15 students, I am going to give this special training on the programming. Okay, so apart from the regular syllabus, I keep on teaching them various other programming techniques. They keep doing it. And the 35 students, another group, control group, they will also be doing program. Now, I want to study what is the effect of training that I have done for 15 students. These 15 students belong to experiment group because they have got additional training or additional instructions or additional knowledge. Now, these 15 students will try to work on this specific techniques. Now, I will conduct a test. I will conduct a test with these 15 students, and I will also conduct the same test for 35 students. Now, I will see what is the effect and effectiveness of the training which is being imparted to these 15 students. Okay, so based on these parameters, okay, I am going to differentiate the two kinds of a design called as informal design and a formal design. Okay, formal design is more applicable for those people who are doing a very extensive research and have got huge data sets, okay, which also has got a commercial applications. Informal design is just to understand. Okay, now this informal design and formal design is being put in one normal entity. What is that? Now I teach some concept in the class. Say for example, I teach this data structures. Okay, so I'm going to teach a DFS, depth first search algorithm. Okay, so everybody will understand. I will assume that everybody will understand. After that, what I do, that is event one. Okay, event one is me teaching to all 50 students. Now after that, what I do, I call an expert from the industry, okay, or from the research institution, and I ask that person to take a class for 1 hour or 2 hours on DFS, same topic. His way of teaching would be will be different, and my way of teaching would be different. So he will try to focus more on research. You try to focus on more algorithmic efficiencies and other things. I might teach only what is an algorithm, how and how it is going to work. Now, after this, that is event 2. Me teaching teaching from the internal staff member is event 1. Teaching from the outsider is a event 2. Okay. Next, I have a event 3. Again, I am going to conduct a test. Now, that will be event 3. Now, I will see what is the percentage of understanding before event 2 and what is the percentage of understanding after the event 2. Okay, I will make 2 things. Before event, what happened? After event, what happened? What is that event? Event 2. Okay, so before a person coming from the research institution, I teach and I will give some questions and you are going to answer it. Okay, so and I call somebody from the other institutions or the research institutions or from the industry, he will teach. Then again, I am going to conduct the test. Now, what is the percentage of understanding before the event 2 and what is the percentage of understanding after the event 2? Based on this concept, the experimental design has been classified into informal design and formal design. Okay, so we have before and after control design, after only with control design, before and after. I think one is with control design and other is without control design. Before and after with control design. Next is B is after only with control design. Next is before and after without control design. These are the 3 different categories. Similarly, in the formal design, we have completely randomized design, randomized block design, Latin square design, and factorial design. Each of these designs have got a different, the plus and minuses or positives and negatives. All designs cannot be used for all kinds of research. So by this time, Saruda told you there are different categories of research. Like you have a descriptive research, you have exploratory research, okay, you have prescriptive research. So like this, there are empirical research, there are evidence-based research. There are around 20 categories of researchers are available in the research domain. So depending upon the type of research, so a specific design can be used. Okay, again, factorial design, you have a simple factorial design and a complex factorial design. Okay. So any clarifications in this?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Terms are very, very important to understand. Okay, next is some information before I go to informal design concept. Design is a very generic terminology. Okay, and design can be applied to any sectors. And when you apply design for education, it is different. When you apply for supply chain, it is different. When you apply for healthcare, it will be different. Okay, so design is nothing but some kind of a method or some procedure. Okay. Now, with respect to a research, so whatever I'm just telling is a very broad information. Okay, in the design terminology, before refers to a measurement being made before an intervention is introduced into a group. So I told you right now that you have event 1, event 2, and event 3. Event 1 is I'm taking a class and I'm going to analyze. Okay, I'm going to analyze the learning level of a student. That means some kind of a measure. I might give 4 questions and I will ask you to apply DFS for a given problem. Some students might do it, some students might not do it, some students might do partially, some people might not at all do it. They would not have understood what is the concept of DFS. Okay, now after evaluating, I will be knowing, okay, where they stand in that concept. Okay. And that where they stand means it is objective. So what is that objective? Through marks. 4 questions. Each question is 10 marks. So it's for 40 marks. My benchmark is the student has taken more than 35 out of 40 is excellent. 30 to 35 is good. Okay. So 25 to 30 is okay. Anything less than 25 is not at all good. So that is my benchmark value. Okay. Now I have made 4 groups. Students who are taking from 0 to 25 is one group. 26 to 30 is another group. 31 to 35 is another group. 36 to 40 is another group. Now, based on my teaching and the scores from the students, I made 4 categories. So that is a measurement for me. Now, after that, what I do? I see that out of 50, only 20 students are good. That means they are in the range of 25 to 30. So I'm not happy with it. Probably they were not able to understand my teaching, or they don't have that much of grasping level. So let us not bother about whatever the reasons it is. So now I feel that I have to bring one person who is extremely good in this specific field, and he can give more information in a simpler way for that concept called as DFS. So he will come and he will take the class for 2 hours on that. Again, I am going to give the same 4 questions. Again, I am going to give the same 4 questions. And again, students will answer. But at this point of time, instead of say 5 people, there are 20 people who will be in 25 to 30 range. That means there is some kind of increment or improvement. Okay. So in research also, before putting the data and after putting the data, what is the effect? So we call this as before and after as pre and post. Before evaluation and after evaluation. Okay. This is what you have to understand with respect to before and after. Next is controls. The word control. So you have a control, you have control group, you have control design. Okay. Control allows the experimenter. Experimenter is nothing but researcher to minimize the effect of factors other than one being tested. That means what? Suppose if I want to evaluate the performance of a student based on some parameters, okay, so I should not consider his mode of transportation, how he is coming to the class, how he is behaving in the class, okay, whether he is writing the assignments properly or not. So all these things become secondary. And for each researcher, these parameters keeps on differing. For one researcher, if the person is doing extremely good in all these things, then I always say that that student is extremely good, very good in all aspects. Whether he comes by bus, whether he comes by vehicle, or whether he comes by some other mode of transportation, until unless his performance is good, I don't ask him. I don't inquire him. But when it comes to punctuality, if punctuality is the scope of study, if it's not very regular, then mode of transport will be definitely one of the very important factor for consideration. So what I mean to tell is, depending upon the type of study that you are doing it, okay, so there are various factors which will be considered. So how do you minimize these factors? Okay, so that is what is control. And based on certain parameters, you are going to group. Okay, so now suppose say I have got 1,000 vaccinations for COVID. Hello? Any clarifications? See, suppose I have 1,000 Covaxin, okay, and yeah, any clarifications, anybody? So I'm getting some disturbance in the middle. Okay, now I have 1,000 vaccines to be given to the people or to the public. Now I have to group it, right? More than 60 years, one group, 50 to 60, another group. Okay, 45 to 50 is another group, less than 45, another group. Now, why should I make this group? What is the purpose of doing this group? Okay, so if I inject a vaccine to the people who are less than 45, what is the effect? If I inject the vaccine between 45 to 50, what is the effect? 51 to 60, what is the effect? Over the 60, what is the effect? So I'm trying to group based on certain things. And again, there are various immunity factors in each of these groups. So that is different. Okay. So that is the purpose of having a group, that is control group. Okay. Now, the control group in the experiment is a group that does not receive any kind of a treatment. Does not receive any treatment in the sense what? Does not have any specialized considerations for these things. These things means what? Groups. Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, Group 4. Okay. So in a given set of 50 students, I was telling 35, only 15 students will be getting some training. Only 35 students will be getting another training. I mean, so they do not get any other, training. It's a very generic group. So that 35 is called as control group. Okay. And these 15 are called as experiment group. Okay. This experiment plus this control group together form the combination for a treatment. Okay. This is a concept that you should understand. Before and after, what is control group, what is the experiment. Next. The first one is, this comes under informal design type. Before and after without control design. A single group or area is selected and dependent variable is measured. Then the treatment is then introduced and the dependent variable is measured again. Now, simple example. Y is equal to 2x. Okay. Y is a dependent variable. X is an independent variable. So I am going to give the value for x. X is equal to 0. Okay. X is equal to 0 and y will be 0. X is equal to 1, y will be 2. X is equal to 2, y is equal to 4. So the value of 5, that is dependent variable, depends upon the value of x. Now, I want to do some computation. What is that computation? I want all the value of y should be in the fractional values or in the decimal point. Okay, so instead of giving 2x, okay, I give, instead of giving 2, I give y is equal to x by 2 or 50% of x. So that whatever the value that I am putting for x should always result in decimal values. That is a treatment which I will be introducing it. Okay, so before event happens, what happens? After event, what happens? So if you are taking the class, example, before the invited talk and after the invited talk. Before the test, before the invited talk, I conducted test. Only 40 students, only out of 50, only 40 students passed. All remaining 10 students failed. Okay. Now, after the invited talk, again I conducted test. Out of 50, 45 students have passed. That means what? Before invited talk, 80% have passed. After the talk, 90% have passed. That means there is an improvement. The treatment effect is 100%. So, 10%. The impact is 10%. So, 90 minus 80, it is 10%. So, before the invited talk, here treatment introduced is, treatment here is nothing but your invited talk. Okay, treatment is nothing but your invited talk. Phenomena, level of phenomena before treatment X, the value of X is, say, test 1. Treatment is invited talk. Y is test 2. Okay, so test 2 marks minus test 1 marks. Can see the improvement. Okay, so that is before and after without the control design. Okay, the method which I have adopted. Okay, next. So here you have only one area. What is that? Test area. Test area is only one factor. Next, after only. That means you are going to conduct two things. Okay. So here one group and test area, level of phenomena after treatment, level of phenomena without treatment. Now, I have a class of 50 students. So I will make two groups, 15 as group 1, 35 as group 2. Now, 15 belongs to experiment group, 35 belongs to control group. Okay. Now, treatment is what? Test. Okay. So, test area is test 1. Okay. Now, I am going to conduct one test. Okay. Only for those 15 students, I will be giving I will facilitate them with a talk from industry person. This person is going to give a talk for only those 15 students. That I will call it as Y. I don't know how they will be before. Okay, I will, based on my intuition, I'm going to pick those 15 students. So I give them I will ask them to attend one training. Okay. I will give some set of questions after the talk. So I will call that as Y. And level of phenomena without treatment. That means for another 35 students, I am not going to give any kind of training. They are also going to write a test. What is the effect? So now, out of 15, I would like to see how many of them have scored 90%. How many of them have scored more than 90% with training, and how many students have scored more than 90% without training. One is with training, 15 students with training, 35 students without training. Now assume out of 15 students, only 10 students have taken more than 90%. So I will call it as Y. So the value of Y here is 10. Okay. So here the level of phenomena without treatment, out of 35, 30 students have taken more than 90. 30 students have taken more than 90. So here out of 15, only 10 students have taken. Okay, here out of 35, 30 students have taken. That means students without training have done very well than students with training. Now, either the grasping level of students are not good, or the training methodology might not be good, or maybe the kind of examples that he has given might not be good. There are various factors which can be considered in Y. But what is the net effect? Whether the objective here is whether training made, had contributed to increase the level of learning of students or not. Now, if that out of 15, if all 15 students get 100 out of 100, okay, full marks. But here in Z, out of 35, only 20 students got 100 by 100. That means now I can understand that after giving training, so there is a possibility that all these students can be subjected to a training so that they score good marks. Okay, so that is what is after only with control design. Next is you have two different phases, a before and after with control design. So which can measure in two groups of participants. So before and after the implementation of the intervention, with one group receiving the intervention and other group not receiving the intervention. Now I told you in the previous case that out of 50 students, based on certain parameters, I pick only 15 students and I call that group as the experiment group and remaining 35 students as control group. 35 students as control group. Now what I will do, these 15 students called as experimental group, before giving a talk, before facilitating them to have a talk, I will see what percentage they have taken. Okay, what percentage they have taken, how many students have passed with, say more than 90%. Then after that what happens? I will facilitate them with the talk. Then see post talk how many students have scored more than 90. Okay, so here level of phenomena before treatment, that is a invited talk, the value of X. Okay, now out of 15 students, only 5 students have scored more than 90. Then I will call somebody to give a talk. All these 15 students will undergo a talk. Okay, then the level of phenomena after treatment. Now instead of 5, there are 12 students who are going to take more than 90%. This is only for this. Hello? Any doubts? Now, before the talk, 5 students have scored more than 90%. After the talk, 12 students have scored more than 90%. So, Y value will be 12, X value will be 5. So, 12 minus 5. So, that will be, say, 7. Okay. Next, control group. Control group is, say, level of phenomena without treatment, say 35. Out of 35, 20 students are taken without treatment. Okay, that means without talk. A value and Z value might be same or might be different also. Okay. Now, what happens is, for experiment group, that 15 students, one is they fare better, probably after talk they would have done better. Now here the questions is remains same for experiment group and control group. Here there is a possibility that they can take more marks also. Here only out of say 15, only 5 students have scored more marks, more than 90%. But here out of 35, say some 20 students would have taken more than 90. So here 5, here 10. So A value will be 10. Next, talk will be introduced. So after talk, this experiment group, the value of Y will be, say, 12. And here it might be less or it might be more. Okay. So Z may assume it will be 25. Now X minus Y. So value of X is 5. Value of Y is 10. value of A is 20, value of B is 25. Okay, so this will be how much it will be? 12 minus 5, this is 7. 7 minus 5, 2. Okay, the treatment effect is only 2%. Okay, if I'm putting it in a percentage, okay, then it will be only 2% improvement for the people who have undergone training. Okay, this is with control design. Okay, so this is what it is. So these are the three different things: before and after without control design, after only with control design, and you are here with control design. Okay, so any clarifications in these three? Are you getting the concept?
Yes, sir.
Right?
Sir.
This you can apply for any situation. I'm just giving you one example. Okay. Like somebody taking a joint entrance test, taking prelims test, taking main exams. Okay, so you can do that. So here, so for example, level of, so somebody is teaching you data structures. So the faculty is teaching the data structures, and level of phenomena before treatment is faculty teaching the data structure subject. Now treatment introduced, maybe you undergo some online course on data structures. That is the treatment. Okay. Next, after undergoing the course, then you see where you stand in the course. You take again some test and see how you are going to perform in that. So that will be why. Okay. So you can apply this for any kind of situations. Okay. This is informal design concept. So we have studied some preliminaries, conceptual preliminaries. Then we have studied the principles of experiment design with examples. Okay, then we have two categories, informal and formal design. And we have seen there are three categories in informal design. Okay. So the next is formal design. So formal designs, we have four categories: completely random design, randomized block design, Latin square design, and factorial design. Factorial design has got another two things: simple and complex. Now we will see what is this completely randomized design. Okay. So in the design of experiments and experimental design, both are one and the same. In the engineering and computer science, the experimental design is called as design of experiments. And in social sciences, we call it as experimental design. Okay. So studying the effects of one primary factor without the need of other variables that are taken into account, which compares the value of response variable based on different levels of that primary factor. Okay. Now, what is this? Completely, I told you what is the randomization. So you are going to take the random inputs, and random inputs always gives to random outputs. Okay. Now, you see the diagram. You have a population. Population is nothing but your sample. Okay, so 50 students. Okay. Out of 50 students, I'm going to take some 30 students out of 50 based on certain factors. Whatever here, since we are taking only one primary factor, The primary factor might be probably say PGCET score. Only students who have got ranks less than say some 300 only will be considered for some evaluation. Now, a company, say Microsoft, has come and they say that we want to train some students. Okay. Now, out of 50, how should I choose some 30 students? There should be some factor which will differentiate from the rest. So, what I will do, since you are in the first semester, I don't know how good you are in technology or how good you are in other things. So, I will ask my attender to give me PGCET score, or CET ranking. So out of which I will identify, okay, 30 students are there who have taken admission to BMSIT MCA department less than 300 ranking. So that might be on my sample. Now my population is 50, sample is 30. Okay, so based on the methodology, I will take the sample. Then what is that methodology? CET score. Then out of 30, okay, I pick 10 students and assign into experiment group. Okay, and put remaining 20 students in the control group. Okay, out of 30, 10 I am going to take into experiment group. Okay, and 20 I am going to take for control group. Now, in Microsoft has said that we want to train the students. There are, suppose say, they are going to train on Microsoft Azure or Amazon, some web services. Assume they will train on web services. Now, one resource person R1 will train experimental group students. Another resource person R2 will train the control group students. Okay, also I call it as treatment A and treatment B separately. Okay, treatment A is nothing but resource person 1, treatment B is nothing but resource person 2. The methodology will be different from resource person R1 to experimental group. Resource person R2 methodology will be something different to control group. Okay, now the output of this. What is the output? Now Microsoft is conducting a test. They want to hire some 10 students. They want to hire some 10 students. Now, after giving training from resource person 1 to experimental group and resource person 2 to control group, I conduct a test. Microsoft is going to conduct a test. Okay, Microsoft is going to conduct a test. So out of 10, 6 people will be recruited. So out of say 30, assume some 30, some 10 students will be recruited. 10 students will be placed. Out of 10, 8 will be from experimental group, 2 will be from the control group. 8 will be from experimental group and 2 will be control group. So now this independent variable, 8 and 2 are called as independent variables. 8 you got it from treatment A, 2 you got it from treatment B. Okay, that means it depends on the kind of training given by the treatment A, the kind of treatment and the kind of training given by the resource person 2. Okay, that means resource person 1 is better than resource person 2. The conclusion is that those who are trained under resource person 1, there is more possibility of getting placement than the persons who got trained in treatment B. Okay, so this is completely randomization process. Now when I've taken 30 as my sample, out of 30, 10 I put to experimental group and 20 I put to control group. This is one level. Next level, I will put 20 to experimental group, 15 to experimental group and 15 to control group, and I will see what is the response. Third possibility, okay, I can make 10, 10, 10. Okay, sorry, I can have only two. I can have 20 in experimental group and 10 in the control group. So what is the primary factor? Primary factor is this treatments. Okay, training is the primary factor. Okay, so you are not giving an importance to any other factors. Okay, so now in this case, we will have two independent variables. Dependent variable will be always one, but independent variables can be more than one. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is completely randomization process.
Sir.
Yeah. Any doubt? Any doubt to any person? Any student? Okay.
No, sir.
Next is a randomized block design. Okay. Now, what I will do for the same experimental design, I will create various experimental units. Okay. And group those experimental units into what is called as blocks. Okay. So, so here I have got a block called as very low IQ, low IQ, average IQ, high IQ, and very high IQ. Okay. I have got some set of students here for the explanation. We have taken only 5 students. Only 5 students have been taken. And form 1, form 2, form 3, form 4 are nothing but your test 1, test 2, test 3, test 4. Okay. A test 1 is taken by all set of students, A, B, C, D, E respectively. Test 2 is taken by all students. Test 3 is taken by all students. And test 4 is taken by all students. Now, depending upon some percentage, okay, depending upon certain benchmark values, okay, I am going to decide which student belongs to very low, which students belongs to low, which students belong to average IQ, which students belong to high IQ, which students belongs to very high IQ. Okay, so I am doing the randomization process here by dividing into blocks. Earlier, what I have done, I have made only 2 groups, experiment groups and control groups. Okay, now what I am doing, I am making it as a blocks. Okay, to be more clear on this aspect, I will give a test on, I will have some 20 questions. In 20 questions, there will be programming questions related to programming, related to a database, related to software engineering, related to some operating systems, etc. Okay. Now there are 4 different groups. Now I have set of 50 students. Now I conducted test 1, test 2, test 3, test. I conduct 4 tests because replication is very important. I'm not going to decide whether the student has got IQ, low Q, or average IQ based on only on one test. Based on different tests, I will do it. Now, what I will do, for each student, I will take what is the marks obtained by him in programming, what is the marks obtained in database, what is the marks obtained in software engineering, what is the marks obtained in operating system. So I'll make four tests, and all 50 students will take all the four tests. Okay, that means there will be 200 answer scripts. There will be 200 Google Forms or 200 tests, 200 answer scripts. Now, out of 50, when I conduct and test 4 times, I will come to know 8 students are very good in programming. 8 students are very good in programming. 12 are very good in, say, database. 8 plus 12 is 20. Then 20 students are very good in software engineering. Okay, so that becomes 40. Then remaining 10 are very good in operating systems. Okay, now I have made 4 blocks. Programming block, database block, software engineering block, and operating system block. Now I can tell which student is good in what. Okay, so this helps me to tell, instead of telling to a student that you're not good in operating system, you're not good in software engineering, or you're not good in studies, I will come to know that this student is very good in this subject. So that is the conclusion what I have to use it. So this kind of design will help me to minimize the effect of the understanding that I have with respect to the students, for the example which I have given now. Okay, so this is completely random. So those things are put it in the blocks. This is the second example. Okay, next is factorial design. The factorial design is used to investigate the effect of 2 or more independent variables on one dependent variable. Okay, say for example, I want to buy the mobile. Okay, buying mobile is my dependent variable. And there are 2 parameters. One is the 2 independent variables. One is price and other is the warranty. Suppose say I want to buy iPhone 11. Price says 70,000, but warranty is 1 year. Okay, some other shop person says that it is 68,000, warranty is 2 years. Okay, now I want to see whether I should go for a price attribute or should I go for a warranty attribute to buy my mobile. Y is equal to price plus warranty. Whether I should consider price and warranty, price or warranty. Okay, so it is always like levels and factors. Now, one example, let's say a researcher wanted to investigate component for increasing SAT scores. Okay, scholastic aptitude test. If I want to get higher ranking in my entrance exam, what are the different components? I'm going for coaching, that is intensive class. Then I will take a study material from the book house and I will study. Maybe I will do some kind of homework. Okay. There are 3 components which are considered. All these things are independent. Classwork, say coaching class, preparing through a book, and some other homework. These 3 components are called as factors. Okay, these 3 components are called as factors. And each factors will have levels, yes or no. Coaching class, whether you have gone or not. Whether are you preparing for book or not, yes or no. Whether are you doing extra homework, yes or no. That means you have factors and you have levels. Factors and levels. Each factor will have levels. The researchers plan to manipulate each of these independent variables. So each of these independent variables is called as a factor, and each factor has 2 levels. So as this experiment has 3 factors, what are those 3 factors? Intensive preparation for through book, then homework has got 3 factors with 2 levels. What is that levels? Yes or no. So how many combinations you can make? Level into to the power of what? To the power of factors. Okay, so 2 levels. There are 3 factors, 2 levels. So you can make combinations of 8. What is that combinations of 8? Either I can go for only coaching class, or only for preparing book, or for only homework, or for class and book, or for book and homework, or homework and class. Okay, so an experiment with 3 factors and 3 levels would be 3 to the power of 3 factorial design. An experiment with 2 factors and the 3 levels will be 3 to the power of 2 factorial design. Okay, so it is levels to the power of factors. The formula is what? Levels, number of levels to the power of factors. Okay, so 2 factors, 2 levels. Suppose say I want to understand the performance of a student. So one is the assignment and other is a test. So I conduct 2 tests. I will conduct 2 tests and I have 2 factors. Okay, yes or no, yes or no. Okay, so test 1, yes or no. So if he has attended both the tests, it is yes. If he has submitted 2 assignments, it will be yes. Okay, so I will look at the combinations. So 2 factors, 2 levels. So it will be 2 into 2 factorial design. Okay, so actually this factorial design will help you to understand the cause and effect relationship. This is the simple factorial design. So I have given assignment to a student and I have given a project to a student. So these are called as control variables. Okay, these are called as control variables. And this I'm going to test it on experiment variables. That is test 1 and test 2. For test 1 as a submitted assignment. Okay. For test 2 as a submitted assignment. For test 1 as a submitted project. For test 2 as submitted project. That means test 1 and test 2 are called as experiment variables. Assignment or project are called as control variables. Any factorial design with 2 cross 2 factors is called simple factorial design. Any factorial design with 2 cross 2 factors is called as simple factorial design. Suppose say the student 1 has submitted all these things for both the tests. It will be 1 plus 1, it will be 2 in the extreme right. Again 1 plus 1, 2. Okay, 1 plus 1 is 2 for assignment project. 1 plus 1 is say 2. Okay, so if you take average, it will be 1. That means he has submitted both assignments and projects. For student 2, you would have it will be 1 0 0 1. That means he is not submitted project of test 1 and he has submitted only one project for test 2. So that will be resultant will be what? 50%. Okay, if all is 1, then you will get 100%. If any 2 is 0, then it will be 50%. Okay, that means you cannot have a fuzzy here. Okay, this is a simple factorial design. Okay. Next, complex factorial design. A factorial design with 2 or more factorial designs are called as complex factorial designs. Okay, so here I have 3 levels and 2 factors. And again in each factor, I have 2 levels, guide and no guide. Assignment, whether I have guided, no guide, whether I have guided or not for the assignment. Again, for test 2, whether guide and no guide, guide and no guide. So that means for each assignment, whether faculty is guiding or not. Okay, so if you are putting more complexities under this, suppose test 1 is the first level, guide and no guide is the second level. If it is guided, percentage of hours guided, percentage of hour not guided. No guide means this term becomes 0. Okay, so here you are going to put the numerical value. If guide, yes means 1, no means 0. And again in the guide, if I have guide means 40 hours means you give some numerical value, some scale, and more than 40 hours you give some value. So you are going to evaluate this. So here in this case, the number of experimental variables are more, and if number of control variables are more than 2, I mean to say, okay, and number of levels are more, then it is called as complex factorial design. A factorial design with only 2 factors is called a simple factorial design. A factorial design with the 2 or more factors is called as complex factorial design. Okay, so this is all about factorial design. So next is a Latin square design. Okay, so what is Latin square design? Out of a given combinations, you are able to identify the number of meaningful words. Suppose you have ABC, some CAB, BCA, you have some kind of characters. It's basically a puzzle. Actually, this is an example for your chess. A very simple example that I would like to give in this case is N-Queen's problem. I hope all of you know about N-Queen's problem. What is the maximum number of queens that you can place in the 3x3 board or 6x6 board or 9x9 board? Okay, it will give you what is the maximum solutions that you can give in the given constraints, given in set of rows and columns. Okay, so that is what is a Latin square design. I think that's all with respect to experiment design. Who is Akhil? Yeah, so that's all from my side. If you have any clarifications, you can ask me. Any doubts?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Akhil,
Yes.
you are required to meet me when you come to the class from next week. Yeah, that's all. If you don't have any clarifications, I think I'm done with experimental design. Okay, so I will be sharing this information with you. So you can just go through it.